Chapter 16. The Strength of the South. Aside from the simple ceremony appointing Gorad as governor of the East, the next few days dragged on for what felt like an agonizing eternity. Confined to his quarters, Jayden's mind raced with thoughts of what he should be doing. Ekinroy made regular visits to inform him how preparations for the march to Eridan were coming, but it was a far cry from seeing it with his own eyes. The general claimed that Mora's soldiers were moderately competent, which, coming from Ekinroy, meant that Torvin had done an excellent job of training his men, and that they would be ready for the march to Eridan when he ordered it. Unfortunately, there were no rooms with a clear view of the practice yards, and the courtyards visible from the remaining bedchambers were not suitable for training. Eyewitness reports were all that he would get until his wizard-turned-physician, Spirion, granted him permission to move about. The fact that his ribs were extremely sore at the moment did nothing to validate the orders that limited his mobility. Spirion, and anyone who agreed that Jayden should remain in bed, were simply being overcautious and extremely unsympathetic. What he truly wanted was to be down there where the men could see him, sword in hand, so they knew he would be a king who would fight for them and with them. He fumed over the cruelty of his comrades as he methodically moved the carved wooden figurine of a warrior with a spear, his sole remaining game piece, forward to the next adjacent square. Zaria squealed with glee as she captured it, making sure to point out that she had placed her imaginary battle commander directly in front of his nose in the center square of his back row. The girl's enjoyment at beating him in Janduzahezar had not diminished with time, and she still refused to play Defend the Split. There were no silly imaginary pieces in that game. Still, he had to admit, however grudgingly, that she did have a head for strategy. Guan sat alone in the corner, intently watching the one-sided battle of wits through his round, childlike blue eyes. He clapped excitedly, to Jayden's extreme chagrin, at all of Zaria's triumphs. Jayden strongly suspected that the son of Druenia's lore-master had feelings for the girl that transcended the bounds of friendship, the way he clung to her side and seemed to hang on her every word. Zaria, on the other hand, focused all her attention on Jayden, an annoyance that he had finally learned to just deal with. He hoped that it was nothing more than a passing curiosity, but he had the feeling that if he got too close, she would try to kiss him. So he avoided eye contact with her as much as he could, and did his best to keep her at arm's length. She was quite beautiful, with an exotic allure, but her arrogant nature grated on his nerves. He refused to think that she might be a little bit too much like himself. Zaria happily reset the game pieces as he prayed for some sort of relief from his purgatorial boredom. His prayers were immediately answered by the appearance of Sidra, who entered the room cradling a bouquet of fresh wildflowers. She had somehow managed to acquire a green skirt that ended just below the knees and clung to her form in a way that quickened his breathing. The light caught her red hair and framed her slightly freckled face in a warm auburn glow. When she smiled, he could almost imagine that no one existed but the two of them, a feeling that diminished only slightly with the appearance of Quandus and Spirion in her wake. They, too, were burdened with a curious assortment of flowers, letters, and decorated packages. "What is all this?"
"For the mighty troll-slayer," Quandus replied with a smirk. "Word of your deed has quickly spread through the city, probably to every hut in the crystal as well, now that patrol parties have been sent to make the road safe and folks are being allowed to come and go as they please."
The gifts were unnecessary, but it was good to know that the people wished him well. Reading the letters would give him a perfect excuse to avoid another thrashing at Janduzahezar, at least. Spirion mumbled something about pack mules under his breath as he sat his burdens down unceremoniously on the floor and approached the bed. He removed one of the pillows from behind Jayden's back.
"You have gotten yourself propped up too far," the wizard complained. "It puts pressure on your ribs."
That is why they've been so sore today, he realized, though he was not about to admit it out loud. He wormed himself down, unconsciously spreading out to try and hide the tears in the bed, before remembering that he had bribed his appointed manservant, Kanan, to replace the old sheets and dispose of them discreetly. A generous portion of bread pudding with honey and fresh strawberries from his plate was a small price to pay for privacy. Changing the mattress itself may have raised questions, especially with someone as shrewd as Spirion checking up on him. It was bad enough that his jailer, as he referred to the wizard in his private thoughts, had insisted that guards be posted outside his room. The last thing he wanted was to have them inside with him. Besides, he did not think that whoever, or whatever, had tried to kill him would take the same approach twice, now that he made sure to double-check the thick latches on the balcony door every night. "To what do I owe this unexpected attention?" he asked with only partial sarcasm. "We thought you might be getting lonely," replied Sidra. "But it seems that you have had plenty of company." His eyes widened. Does she think... She can't be jealous. Not when she follows Spurion around like a lost puppy. It served her right if she was, he told himself. In fact, he hoped she was. After all, where had she been the last few miserable days? "Zaria and I are getting along quite well," he told her. "We've been playing... What do you call it again, dear?" Zaria blinked her wide blue eyes, turning her long dark lashes up to Sidra. "Janduza Hazar? He is not so good." He forced himself to laugh. "Not yet. Zaria's an excellent teacher, however. I'm sure I will get better if we just keep at it." "I'm sure. I think maybe he'd do not try so hard," Zaria divulged in what may have been a confidential tone. Jayden gave the Droka girl a warm smile, topping it off with a sly wink. "Her accent is adorable, isn't it?" "Adorable," Sidra replied. She tossed the bouquet onto his lap. "I hope you enjoy your flowers, your highness." With that, she turned on her heel and left the room. Quandus cleared his throat. "Yes," Jayden snapped irritably. "Now that I have read every book available from cover to cover twice over, and lost enough at this bloody game to put a dim-witted troll to shame, are you going to tell me what has been so important that not one of you has been able to spare a moment to check up on me?" "Sidra thought it was important to spread the details of your battle with Dergmont throughout the city for the past couple of days. She has been telling everyone she comes across how you slew the beast and are recovering from your wounds. Our help was rather forcefully enlisted as well. She thought if everyone knew that you were seriously injured in the battle, they would not question your absence in the training yards. She hoped it might help you win the people over and gain the respect of the soldiers. That is why we have not had time to visit." Immediately, he felt like a complete fool. An empty sensation blossomed in the pit of his stomach. What was he thinking? He could not remember ever behaving so badly in all his life. Why did she make him act so childish? "No," he reprimanded himself. "That was all my doing." The wizard and the prophet did not stay long. There was not much to say, and the air in the room had grown rather heavy after Sidra's abrupt departure. Jayden did open a few letters then. Zaria became bored and left, as he predicted, and he found them so intriguing that he read through them all. A few of them brought him to tears, such as the one from the 6-year-old girl whose father had been killed in the ambush set by Dergmont, thanking him because her mother had not spoken a word after that day until she heard the news that the Troll King had been vanquished. The presents consisted mostly of sweet treats, but there was also a pair of marbled bookends, wooden slippers, a carved horse, and a garish sweater. Soon enough, his normal routine of rereading the books in his room and dwelling on events that he could not control from bed resumed, until Ekinroy came the next morning and found him once again losing at Janduza Hazar to the Droka girl, who had reappeared at his door shortly after dawn. Guan had tagged along with her, of course. The general was intrigued by the game and asked if he might watch them play. "If you want to," he responded skeptically. "It doesn't make a lot of sense as far as I can tell." Ekinroy watched them with the same serious concentration that he gave to his soldiers when they were training, not missing a single nuance in strategy. Jayden dreaded the thought of losing in front of him, so he tried as hard as he could to finally win a game. In the end, it was no use. Zaria was just too good.
"You mind if I have a go at it?"
asked Ekinroy. "Suit yourself. I'm telling you, she's impossible to beat." He started to explain the imaginary piece, how when captured it could prematurely end the game, but Ekinroy waved him off, claiming that he had already discerned how the game worked. The invisible commander could start on any open square on the board, and could be moved on any turn at the expense of moving another piece. There was, of course, always a chance that the other player would blunder into an accidental early victory. Jayden had not been so fortunate. The movement of the commander was kept track of on paper by the one moving it, but a great deal of trust still had to be given to each player to admit when the piece had been captured, though Zaria insisted that a skilled player would know when they had taken the other's most important game piece. He watched curiously as the two mental combatants began the game. Astonishingly, Ekinroy barely looked at the board, but instead focused on Zaria's eyes. The Droka girl, confident at first, slowly began to show signs of indecision. Sweat beaded on her brow, presumably from the pressure of bearing Ekinroy's hard stare. Just under half of the pieces had been captured, when the general confidently moved one of his single soldiers diagonally without bothering to look at the board.
"Good game,"
he told her.
"I always enjoy a challenge."
The shocked Droka girl looked to Jayden as if expecting him to comfort her, but he was as surprised as she was. Not that he would have said anything to assuage her ego anyway, after the repeated beatings that she had unsympathetically doled out to him. She narrowed her eyes at Ekinroy and rose from her chair, leaving the room without so much as a word. Guan followed a moment later.
"Poor loser, isn't she?"
"I wouldn't know. I've never beaten her."
"It's all in her eyes. She avoids the area where her commander is. It is a simple tactic that works against unskilled opponents."
"Thanks."
"I prefer to keep mine near my strongest pieces, to protect it with force if I need to, though I would switch it up if someone appeared to catch on. It also helps to move the commander occasionally when it is in no danger, to make her think she has you on the run. Just watch her eyes, and you will see what I mean. She looks everywhere but at her commander, and she keeps only a single minor piece near it, so that you don't think it worth the effort to move your forces there. Relentlessly attack the part of the board that she is ignoring, and she will have no choice but to run. Then you will have her."
Jayden thanked him for the tip, vowing to try the strategy when next they played. They talked for a while then about the old days, focusing on better times. Having the general with him made anything seem possible. Even Grisland might think twice about confronting Ekinroy directly. Crysin's first man-at-arms, a title he had earned before general, apparently had certain immunities to magic granted through the strange link that a wizard shared with their champion. He did wonder what sort of effect the diminishment of Spurion's powers might have on that protection, though. What chance would a wizard's champion stand against another wizard when his master was so weak? It was a question he was not quite ready to ask the big man.
"It is unlikely that he will be at the castle,"
said Ekinroy when the topic of the betrayer came up.
"We know that he was recently in Falfarvin, and with his most powerful enemies in Crysin defeated, as he undoubtedly believes they are, he will have left only a token force to hold the capital and deal with any trouble that might arise. Whoever he has left in charge of Eredin will be focused on what forces Governor Vanderwerk can muster in the south. Gustavus is a good man, but his talents do not lie on the battlefield. Grisland knows this, so he himself will have moved on to grow his strength elsewhere, if his ambition is to rule all of Alnorda, as my master believes. We can only hope that the governor has placed someone competent in charge of the resistance effort."
"What about Governor Fortinbras in the west? The men of the west are not known as fierce warriors, but surely they have enough fighting men to cause trouble for any small force left behind to defend Eredin. They do send men to the Split, after all."
"Fortinbras is a pompous fool. He will welcome the chance to turn the West into its own kingdom again, as it was in the days of his ancestors. We cannot ignore the possibility that he may have even conspired with the wizard. I have been to Banhaden, what was once the capital of Varshido. The halls are filled with portraits of the old monarchs and nobles in their flamboyant robes, all of them looking at you down those long noses of theirs. Fortinbras paces the halls, dreaming of the day he can proclaim himself King Fortinbras and secure a place in history among his kin. The only reason he ever paid tribute to your father was because Urien told him he would cut his—"
The general stopped himself.
"I won't repeat the conversation, but since then, Alexter Fortinbras has been more than accommodating. His loyalty to the crown, however, has always been at the point of your father's sword, and ended at the tip of his own tongue. He, and many other Westerners, feel that Varshido was forced into an unhappy marriage with Crysin, a marriage they would like nothing better than to see annulled."
"I thought the Varshes joined with Crysin because they wanted to. They were a peaceful kingdom that decided they would be stronger militarily if the two countries combined."
"Huh. They joined us because Arden Ryanthorn forced them. The history books in the library at Eredin paint a gentler picture, but no king that I know of has ever given his throne to another willingly. Crysin had protected them for too long, and it was beginning to wear on our resources, the Varshes being too preoccupied with the arts and sciences to raise a proper army of their own and protect themselves. They considered war a barbaric custom practiced by the unenlightened world populace, as they saw the other nations back in those days. They used us as a shield for generations. The Illusion Wars changed all of that. When Samalt of Kamchak landed on their doorstep with 8 warships full of brainwashed Myrmidonians under his control.
Ekinroy began placing the pieces of Jean du Zehazar back in their starting positions as he spoke, his manner turning introspective, almost as if he were reliving the time, though Jayden knew that was impossible since Farshido had merged with Crysin nearly 2 centuries ago.
8 black ships, their flags rippling in the stiff coastal breeze, convulsing emblems of doom for the kingdom of peace. To the heavens looked the men of wisdom, and not to their swords. To their husbands looked the women of Zanzia. The bright eyes of the bewitched paid no heed to the knowledge of old, nor tribute to the industry of the present. The art of ages lay unnoticed, and the bodies black did line the streets, as the blood of peace did stain the stones.
They shared an awkward moment. Jayden had never seen such emotion from the stout warrior in all the time he had known him. Finally, Ekinroy cleared his throat and shrugged.
It has no title. Melly wrote it, based on The Lament of Varshido by an anonymous author.
It is heartbreaking. He had not known that Ekinroy's wife had been such a wordsmith.
Yes, it is. So you see, the people had no choice but to beg for support, and Arden used the situation to his advantage. There was hardly a kingdom left after the wars anyway, and enfolding them within our borders was a logical decision. It would be nice to believe it was to better protect them, though the truth is that only those present at the time will ever know for certain. My point is that the Varshas, Crysinians now, still dream of their utopian kingdom. You will have to deal with Alexander Fortinbras harshly at some point, as your father did. Mark my words. You may even use his lack of support in the current crisis as a reason to replace him, if he does as I believe he will, and remains safely behind his mountain pass.
Jayden had had his own brief experience with Fortinbras shortly before Eredin fell, and secretly thought the man a fool, but the people of Crysin's western province were said to respect him. Besides, there was no proof that Fortinbras was treacherous. Wouldn't replacing him be a bit extreme?
Extreme? Politics are not extreme. They are brutal. If you do not know this by now, you will after a short time on the throne. The people will love you for the easy decisions, and hate you for the difficult ones. But it is those difficult decisions that will define your rule, as they did your father's.
He did allude many times to the impossibilities of pleasing everyone. He used to say that a king who pleases everyone today will please no one tomorrow.
You have to understand that many people cannot see, or refuse to see, past the moment they are in, with no sense that the world will continue on without them. Any decision that does not improve their lives immediately, or at least in the very near future, will likely be an unpopular one. Many good rulers were not considered so until years after their death, and the people of the day have loved many poor ones. You must have the ability to make unbiased decisions, knowing how they will affect the people of Crysin years down the road. These are the decisions which are not always easy, and that will make you a good king. You have already shown signs that you can do this.
What do you mean?
Revenge is a tempting mistress. My first instinct when I awoke from that damned spell was to go after Grisland immediately, whatever the outcome. You contradicted me. You have never done that before, at least not openly, as long as I have known you. You were right to do so.
I want to see him dead too. I would kill him with my own hands if I thought I could.
And yet we march to Eredin, where we believe he is not, because you order it.
Yes. Eredin first, Grisland after.
For the good of the people.
For the good of the people. They grasped hands. It was the closest he had ever felt to the barrel-chested man. They were more than prince and mentor now, Jayden realized. They were friends. What about Mora? The garrison here is substantial. Grisland would not want to turn his back on the walled city without neutralizing it first. Why didn't he send men against the east?
He didn't need to. He used what forces were already here. Or do you think it a coincidence that this Durgamont creature and an army of trolls was parked on Garad's doorstep when you arrived?
I suppose not. I should know better than to underestimate the enemy at this point. If they can create monsters like that thing, and bring the trolls together...
Then what other forces might they send against us? All the more reason to take Eredin as quickly as possible and fortify it, which brings me to the purpose of my visit.
He stood.
Are you ready to address your army, my liege?
Now?
If you are up for it, that is.
Oh, I'm up for it. I would be up for an all-day inspection of the stables at this point. But Spurion...
I convinced him to let you come down to the yard for a bit. I thought it might be good for morale to let the troops see the mighty troll slayer in person. Do not make me regret it.
Never. I will be as careful as a mother with child.
That's good. And maybe clutch at your ribs every now and then for effect. Your battle with Dergmont is quickly becoming the stuff of legend. We wouldn't want the men to think the beast just rolled over for you, now would we?
Of course not. Should I use my sword as a crutch?
As long as you don't think for a moment that you will get a chance to use it.
I wouldn't dream of it. I'm too frail, remember? Very slowly, and with exaggerated effort, he pulled back the covers. He wanted to kick them off, but the urge for theatrics was too much to overcome, and lowered himself gingerly to the floor with a long groan. Ekinroy shook his head.
The soldiers may think that old Dergmont got the better of you at this rate.
It did take him a moment to gain his balance, having not moved from his bed in 3 days, except to use the chamber pot or gaze from the balcony in longing, but his ribs felt only a little sore as he went to the closet to dress himself. Looking into the standing mirror, he noticed when he removed his shirt that the swelling had gone down. The bruises were still a nasty muted violet and yellow, though, as was the bruise on his jaw. When he finished dressing, he retrieved his sword from the corner of the room and made gratefully for the door. Ekinroy halted him.
"Where did you get that scimitar?"
he asked curiously, his eyes scanning the curved blade. "There was an attack in Druania. Hysanthor sent a group of men after me. I think they were Facilian." He gave Ekinroy a brief recap of the fight, leaving nothing out. If there was one man alive that he knew he could trust with sensitive information, even about Magharine, it was the general.
"They were Facilian, all right. Cirzian tribe, by the markings on this handle."
Hysanthor must have purchased their services as mercenaries.
"Not unless he bought them all. When a Facilian hires out his sword, the entire tribe comes with him. In the harsh lands they live in, the tribes of Facili are always on the move. Staying together means life when 2 or more tribes are competing for the same resources, and none of them trusts outsiders. Did the others look like this?"
Ekinroy traced the branded lines in the dark wooden handle with his finger. There were intricate symbols burnt there that Jayden had not noticed before. "I don't remember."
"Look next time. These men tried to kill you. That makes them your enemy, whatever the reason. A man who does not know his enemies is always in danger of being stabbed in the back."
"Yes, sir," said Jayden respectfully, falling unconsciously back into the student-teacher mode they had adopted long ago. "How many of these Cirzians are there?"
10,000, maybe more. Not a large tribe, but not a force we want knocking at our back door while we march on Eredin. Hysanthor would have had to offer them something very precious indeed to draw them away from their hold. You will have to send an emissary to Gadavan, Sultan of the First Clan, right away. I cannot imagine he would take kindly to any of the clans risking war with a Western nation.
"Maybe they will return to the east now that Hysanthor is dead."
"Maybe, but only a fool would count on it. Come, the day is wasting, and the men are eager to get a look at their crippled prince."
The sky was overcast again, but at least it was dry. Jayden breathed the fresh air in as deeply as he could without overexpanding his rib cage. They met Garad on the steps of the inner keep, shuffling through a stack of papers and being bombarded on every side by official-looking men in fine robes. He spared them only a small wave and quickly moved on. "I was wondering why Garad had not been up to see me. Every time I ask after him, I'm told that he is extremely busy."
"Yes. Our young governor thought that his place was in the training yard, bullying the younger men into listening to him. There were a few less than cordial words spoken between us when I informed him that I would be relieving him of command over all military personnel."
"What was the outcome?"
"He found it prudent to give some much-needed attention to a number of civic duties he has been neglecting. Apparently, someone has put a bug in the ear of the citizens that Garad is accepting all manner of complaints that pertain to losses incurred due to the recent troll problem."
"Good. Dealing with a city full of disgruntled citizens one-on-one might teach him a little humility."
"Torvin should have taken a firmer hand with that one, if you ask me. He doted on that boy after Mercilla died. Anyway, Zurith seems to be keeping a tight rein on the boy's temper since their recent confrontation."
When they reached the practice yard, Jayden saw that Ekinroy had placed one soldier, choosing from the more seasoned veterans, with each small group of younger recruits to directly oversee their drills and sparring. Little knots of off-duty soldiers had gathered around some of the groups, quietly enjoying the better of the one-on-one matchups. The solid clacks of wood on wood from the practice swords sputtered and died at their approach.
"What are you all stopping for?"
bellowed Ekinroy.
"His Highness has come to inspect your training, not share tea. Resume your lessons."
Jayden smiled inwardly, remembering how that stern voice used to haunt him in his sleep. But it was that firm, demanding tone that had ultimately drilled into him the instincts that he had since used to stay alive. He spent a good portion of the morning meeting with the men and watching them spar, having to excuse himself a few times when it became obvious that he was becoming too much of a distraction. Everywhere he went, there was excitement in the air, as they knew that soon their training would be put to the test. Many of the younger men stared with open awe as Jayden hobbled around with his troll-killing scimitar cane, clutching now and then at his bruised ribs. The older men bowed respectfully. He did his best to instill in them a sense that they were appreciated, and that things in Crysin would soon be put right by their efforts. There did not seem to be any doubters in the group. Ekinroy's assessment, as he had expected, had fallen far short of the truth. Torvin's soldiers were more than competent. They were ready. Even those who were barely more than youths appeared to have had some training before they were recruited. With sword or axe, they followed the forms of their instructors fluidly, eager to show their skills. Bales of hay were set against the castle wall for archery practice, next to wooden logs on stands that were targets for the famous throwing axes of Crysin's eastern woodsmen. They would hurl their specially balanced axes at the enemy to kill, maim, or even distract them as they charged in for hand-to-hand combat. Axes were incredibly difficult to judge in the air, and many a foe who found themselves on the wrong end of a Moraman's hurled blade had been split like a piece of firewood while still deciding which way to jump. Hunger struck around noon, and Jayden decided that he would eat with the soldiers in the barracks kitchen. He was distracted on the way by a crowd that had grown larger than the rest. A short, skinny youngster, with a pair of small sticks representing long knives or daggers, was facing off against a much larger boy with one long stick. Their protective sparring masks were pulled down, obscuring their faces as they circled each other. The first thing he noticed was the superb balance of the smaller combatant, who moved with a feline grace, keeping full front to the larger opponent at all times. The bigger boy, on the other hand, was turned to the side, offering as small a target as he could and keeping his opponent at blade's length. His balance was not bad, but there were obvious moments when a good lunge would have caught him off guard. Jayden let out a sigh as he thought of how much fun it would be to challenge the winner. The skinny fighter must have caught on to the holes in the larger boy's defense as well, lunging at just the right moment to overbalance him and move in for a strike. The big lad tried to keep the other on point, but the quicker, smaller combatant pushed the long stick away with the fake daggers crossed and spun in, making contact with the other's chest. No one cheered. Ekinroy made certain that sparring on the practice field was an exercise, not a sport for onlookers, but it was obvious by the smiles in the crowd that they wanted to. The smaller fighter was apparently quite popular with the men.
"Caught you off guard, Edberg?"
said the instructor, a one-eyed captain named Chertez.
"I warned you about that step of yours. Shift, don't rock, and always keep your balance. Try it again."
The next round displayed much the same result, though the bigger boy did put up a better fight. He was doing a better job of maintaining his balance while moving, but now seemed to be over-focusing on his own weakness and not focusing enough on the practice daggers of his opponent. Balance and technique would come more naturally to him with time and practice. The little fighter really was too quick for him, though, and quickness, unfortunately for Edberg, was not so easy to teach. "Excellent work," Jayden commended the wiry little fighter when the match was over. "I have seen few young men so skilled with their daggers. General Carthaginian claims that they are weapons for men who wish to look danger directly in the face. Is that why you train with them?" The other reached up to remove the training mask. Jayden was about to comment on the youth's exceptional form and graceful movement, but the words died on his tongue as ringlets of sweat-dampened red hair spilled down around slender shoulders. Sidra returned his look of bewilderment with a frown. "I have trained with daggers because I like to hunt, and it is impossible to sneak through the underbrush with a longsword dangling at your side or strapped to your back, Highness. I only hope that these young soldiers can control those unwieldy splitting mauls of theirs when I fight alongside them at Eridan." Something in the back of his mind warned him that he was about to tread on delicate ground. "But she cannot," his thoughts screamed in protest. "It is too dangerous." "A soldier's life is not an easy one," he told her dumbly, wanting to kick himself as soon as he said it. "She's great with a bow. She should at least stay back with the archers." "Waking up from months under that spell, wondering how many of your innocent countrymen you might have killed, is not an easy thing either, Highness. Crysin is my home as well. This war has been brought on us all, and I will not hide in the shadows while others go to battle." Why did he hate it so much when she called him Highness? It was his title, after all, but she wielded the honorific as deftly as she did her knives. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" "From my father and brother, who served under your father, Highness, and were also trained by General Carthaginian." It was evident from her intractable demeanor that there would be no headway made against her decision, also that she had likely not forgiven him for his rude behavior the previous afternoon. Looking into those blue eyes that so often invaded his thoughts, he wanted to tell her something, anything, which would renew the bond they had shared. Yet there seemed no prudent way to express such feelings amidst so many onlookers without embarrassing both of them. A simple apology seemed inadequate, but he decided it was better than nothing. The words did not have a chance to form on his lips before a trumpet blast and the sound of approaching hooves stole the attention of everyone. Shouts of "Gustavus! Governor Vanderwerk!" and "The South!" were heard from every corner of the yard. 4 mounted men, wearing the green and brown of the East, surrounded a pair of riders in the light blue and white of Crysin's southern province. One of the riders removed his helmet, revealing a bright-eyed man with light blonde hair. He searched the crowd until he found Ekinroy, who was quickly making his way in their direction. "I dared not trust to hope," shouted the man joyously, "even when they told me, 'The Dragon Slayer lives! We are saved!'"
"What are you doing here, Tevius?" exclaimed Ekinroy.
"I came with news, Great One, and to ask that the East take up our cause,"
the man named Tevius replied.
"I came merely to enlist support, and instead I find a savior."
"Easy, man. It's that sort of talk that got you sent south in the first place. Come, both of you. His Highness and I are eager to hear what you have to say."
Tevius noticed Jayden for the first time.
"Your Highness," he said with a deep bow, "it is no surprise to find you well. Nothing is impossible while the Slayer of Dragons still holds breath."